Good morning, and thank you all for coming. This government's agenda for the renewal and recovery of Bermuda is founded on making our community safer. The Ministry of Public Safety hit the ground running after the last election in December of last year and the subsequent throne speech in February of 2013. Each initiative that we undertook has been delivered or will be implemented by the end of this calendar year. The task has not been easy, but the team within the Ministry of Public Safety and the various departments have worked hard to deliver on the promises we made to the people of Bermuda. And today, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to highlight some of the portions of the throne speech that was read last Friday, which will positively impact the lives of the people of Bermuda. As the Bermuda Police Service continues the strong enforcement that has seen significant decreases in crime, we also have the responsibility to provide alternatives to the gang lifestyle for our young people. The call-in procedure mentioned in the throne speech is one such strategy. Using the Operation Ceasefire model, the Interagency Gang Task Force is working on the best practice call-in for Bermuda. We will endeavor to engage community and moral voices to directly challenge those men and women who are on the cusp of exiting the gang lifestyle to choose work over crime, families over gangs, and education over just getting by. This process must also be backed by resources, and so we also intend to make good on our cash back to communities promise that we made. This program has already had the legislative foundation after the Proceeds of Crime Act was amended earlier this year. It is now time to put money where our mouth is, and so the dollars from the Confiscated Assets Fund will firstly be allocated to support Team Street Safe in their gang mediation efforts. And their mandate includes providing alternative opportunities for those who seek to transition away from the gang lifestyle. I'm pleased also to say that funds will go towards Focus Counseling and the Family Center, who are indeed on the front line of family intervention and assistance. Modernization. Modernization often calls for a culture shift. The implementation of mandatory ID checks, as well as a duty to ask for proof of age when serving alcohol, is ingrained in many other countries. And we must also make this careful approach a part of how we manage alcohol use in Bermuda. I'm pleased that the early indications of support from the owners and the operators of licensed premises, and I look forward to working with them to make sure that the Liquor License Act 1974 is a better and more user-friendly piece of legislation going forward. Now, two items in the throne speech have predictably stimulated some public discussion. The first is our promise on the elimination of conscription, and the second, of course, is the intended discussion on the decriminalization of marijuana. Let me address each in turn. Can conscription be eliminated with a simple legislative amendment? Of course it can. Is that responsible? Of course not. No one can question my commitment or the commitment of the Bermuda government to the elimination of conscription. However, the timeline to do so will not be dictated by any personal frustrations or single-issue campaigns. There is a definite responsibility that comes with governing, which can be harmed by oversimplifying issues or allowing oneself to be caught up in a wave of political expediency. Let me be very clear. Conscription will be eliminated and the regiment will be preserved. It will happen this session, and the timelines will be set to reflect the future requirements of the institution and not any version of its past. With respect to the marijuana debate, as the throne speech clearly indicated, it is time for leadership on this issue. This discussion must emerge from the shadows and be research-driven and be public. A considerable amount of work has been done by the Department of National Drug Control, and our aim is to collate the research and release it in a comprehensive form for members of the legislature and members of the public. Since my original comment some weeks ago on this issue, I'm pleased to advise you that I've been approached by a cross-section of young people in Bermuda. And these young people are prepared to give of their time and examine the issues and to prepare a report from their perspective and incorporating the views of the general public. I hope to announce them in due course, but I can assure you that this group will be a bipartisan group focusing on producing some useful analysis to form part of our discussion paper. Too many lives have been unbalanced by a criminal conviction for an insignificant amount of marijuana. Considerable resources are expended in prosecuting cases that could be better disposed of without any court appearance. And just as importantly, our drug policies have hardly evolved since the Misuse of Drug Act 1972 was first introduced. After 40 years, it is time to take a look at how we deal with these issues. And lastly, let me briefly turn my attention to the announcement regarding food prices and the 10% discount to be offered by participating supermarts. The Premier asked myself and Minister Fay to engage supermart owners in meaningful dialogue to devise a way to help people during these very difficult times. Over several weeks, we discussed how we would achieve this. In some cases, people understand that we are setting the stage for recovery in our economy and that rebuilding this economy is a promise that all Bermudians know will take some time. But it is very clear where everyday needs are concerned, help must be immediate and it must be impactful. And we believe that we have achieved this with the introduction of the double discount for customers on a day when people usually shop and when they usually buy grocery items for the week. I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank the supermarts and their management team who came to the table completely recognizing that our people are hurting. In our discussions, there was never a question of if, but it was always how. Tomorrow we have the opportunity to debate the throne speech, and I look forward to this debate because I believe that this government's vision is one that is inclusive and one which is determined to rebuild and restore the country. I'm happy to have the opportunity to make some comments today, and I thank you for your time, and I'm open to any question you might have on these matters. Who wants to start off first? Tarai.
Yes, good morning, Minister. On the issue of conscription, the opposition leader criticized you and your party for not even reading their abolition bill on Friday before voting it down. I'm trying to get a sense of why the government didn't even read the bill.
The opposition leader is unfortunately correct. I was in the House at 9:15 last Friday morning. I got a copy of the bill. I read the bill. I scanned it back to ministry, and the bill was looked at. So that assertion by the opposition leader is incorrect.
On the issue of decriminalization of marijuana, we spoke with Alan Gordon, and he basically said that he harped on your comment that legalization, I believe, would not be appropriate for Bermuda. And he felt that that decision should be left to the people and not to a cabinet minister. You want to respond to that?
I could be wrong, but I think he's got that comment slightly distorted. I said it was my personal opinion that I do not support legalization. I've also made it very clear in the 3 or 4 public announcements that I've made that I'm open and willing to listen to everyone who wants to speak on this matter. And that's one of the reasons why we've taken this public consultation, and one of the reasons why I'm so excited about a group of young people coming forward to help bring some more information into this dialogue. As a minister of cabinet, I have no problem telling people where I stand, but I also fully understand that decisions are made by people forming consensus moving forward. And I wanted to get that out there early, because when we have very important public debates like this, people will always ask the person speaking, well, what's your personal opinion? My opinion's out there for people to know, but I will always listen.
So are you ruling out the possibility of government looking at regulation, as they call it?
We just started this process, and so I don't want to be setting goalposts for what the individuals who are going to make submissions to come back to us should do. I look forward to the process. I want to hear everything from the beginning to the end. I'm not going to rule out anything at this time. My personal opinions will certainly have an impact on what goes forward, as will the opinions of everyone going forward. One of the things, Tarai, that I want to mention here is I love Bermuda because we're so small and people have access to the media. But sometimes those individuals who get so focused in on one agenda need to take a step back and just breathe for a moment. Because I don't think they do their cause any good by just harping in that this is the way to go and castigating people who disagree with them because they have a different opinion. That's not how you build consensus. Nobody gets everything in life that they want unless you're mighty lucky. And so if we want to find consensus going forward, people who have very strong, definitive views on issues need to try to understand there are opposing views, I should listen to them, and how do we work to get the best solution? Thank you, Tarai. Good question.
Thank you. The decriminalization of marijuana, any hope of that situation being extended to include cruise ship passengers who have been going some pretty serious fines and punishments for a little amount of marijuana?
Brian, I'm glad you raised that question again. It's come up a couple of times during press conferences that we've had. And our approach here in Bermuda has been very clear. We've got strong partnerships with United States officials, and they make it very clear to people when they get on board cruise ships to travel to Bermuda what our policy is. And security on that end takes a very close look at what they're going to do. I was in tune to this issue at the start of the cruise ship season, and we've tried to adopt the approach where we're not going to turn a blind eye to the rules that the island has. We're going to enforce those, but we're going to really focus in on our enforcement at the gangplank. If a cruise ship calls us in and there's serious challenges on board, then the authorities will have to deal with that, and that's the approach that we're taking at this time. We understand that it's a very fine line that you have to walk, but the law is the law, and we will enforce it at the gangplank.
Do you have any idea of what the time frame will be for the end of conscription?
I mentioned in my brief here today that this session will be laid out very clearly what the timeline will be. So in due course, after discussing with my cabinet colleagues and the House of Assembly, it will certainly be laid out.